Old Fashioned Football on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by our Patreon. Score exclusive perks, content, and contests, including our NFL win totals contest with a $1,000 prize. Join today at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. We're also brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app to get last-minute tickets at the lowest price guaranteed. Use promo code SGPN for $20 off. We're also brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code DGEN. New customers can score $200 in bonus bets instantly when they bet just $5 on any college football bet. Only at DraftKings with code DGEN.
Hey, what's up? This is Sam Macho, and you're listening to Old Fashioned Football.
Old Fashioned Football.
Make this deal right now, you pancake eating mother.
All right, deal.
Old Fashioned Football.
Welcome to Old Fashioned Football. If you're wondering who you're listening to, this is JMark. You can find me on Twitter at JMark Football. And before I keep going, I got to introduce my co-host on the pod and in life. You can find her on Twitter or find her on X, whatever you want to call it, at the Mark. You can call her Mur. How you doing today?
Murmur?
Did I say murmur?
You can call her Murmur.
Murmur.
No, I'm doing great. It's Wednesday already.
It is Wednesday.
Oh my goodness. It feels like Tuesday. We had an extra long weekend, which was nice.
Yeah.
But no, it's going great.
Yeah. And in case you're tuning in on YouTube, we are releasing video now in the steps to us going live. So make sure you go over to YouTube and check us out, Old Fashioned Football Podcast, because our shows will be live there, including starting Friday when we do the Listener League draft live.
We've already heard so much about this, and people making sure that they're going to be listening. People in our draft, which I don't know how I feel about that, because nobody needs to know who we're going to be bidding on.
I think there's going to be a
fun.
little bit of a delay, enough that if they are listening, it's not going to affect it too much.
I don't know.
But
we'll see.
There's bound to be some drama, which is I did see on Facebook, because I made a Facebook event, that our buddy Mikey said that's the main selling point, us arguing over players and their prices. So that'll be interesting.
It will be.
Anything else you have to add before we move on?
No.
Well,
we're going to be talking. I guess I do have stuff.
Well, yeah,
we're going to be talking auction strategies today. We have a special guest coming on the show with us. We have some NFL headlines, I guess, to cover.
Seems like
quite
a lot
of few,
of stuff.
Which if you've already been drafting, I feel like some of this stuff already impacts me. And I'm just kind of cringing about it. Yeah. And of course, we're drinking an old fashioned. It wouldn't be our podcast if we weren't having an old fashioned.
And speaking of old fashioned, I know you just said we're drinking an old fashioned, but more specifically, what are we drinking today?
We're drinking. I can actually show the bottle, maybe. I'll let you hold that up. Old Potrero Single Barrel Reserve Straight Rye Whiskey.
I realize it's backwards for y'all looking live. Sorry.
But this one is actually it's a barrel reserve, single barrel reserved, and this barrel is a Spirits pick.
Yep. It's a barrel select from A Spirits. You can only get it at A Spirits, of course. Go to www.aspirits.com. Use code BET for $10 off. But if you like what you hear when we talk about this one, you can check it out there. You forgot to point out what I think is the most important thing about this one. Are you waiting, or do you know what I was going to say?
The most important. What do you mean?
The most important thing. This is the highest proof.
Oh, well, Okay.
Oh,
yes.
you were going to get to that later.
Yeah, I have that all.
My
ready
bad,
for
jumping the
our
gun.
background and information about the whiskey, but fine. You're excited. He's excited about the proof,
I
everybody.
am.
It's a 131.3.
I believe that's correct.
Yes, 131.3 proof, which is the highest proof whiskey we have tried on the show.
Yes. Literally putting the term liquid flammable to to use there, the 131 proof. So
Not to give a spoiler alert, but it doesn't drink like one.
not at all.
So.
We actually tried this at Ace Spirits, because if you go to Ace Spirits in Minneapolis, if you find yourself up in Minnesota, you can try a bunch of the different things they have, and you can try all their barrel selects. And so we got to try this one. And as you can see by looking behind us, I could not leave the door after
No.
trying it without buying the bottle.
And that is one of the things I like about going to Ace Spirits or Ace Spirits. Not only do they ship direct to consumer, but you can go there and try their
Yeah.
barrels. And if we hadn't tried it, we wouldn't have ended up bringing it home with us.
Yeah. Yeah. They
So.
also do a lot of fun things. I saw they did a raffle recently for anybody that stopped in the store. You basically get a raffle ticket for visiting the store, and they gave away some special whiskey that they had just gotten in. I was very jealous, inquired if I could get a ticket via online, but it was a in-person only thing. Almost drove back up there. Anyways, let's get to this NFL news.
Yes. So Josh Jacobs update. He's still holding out.
No, I heard he was going to camp.
No. Yeah, I was excited because I don't know how many days ago this was, but I had seen, they're talking about like they anticipate him to come back. They anticipate him signing. And then he gets on, is it X?
He gets on the X.
But he basically like denied all of that, disputed those, said they were just rumors, and that he is still holding out. He's not coming back to camp. It makes me nervous because I decided to be optimistic. We've been having drafts, and I drafted him in one of our leagues. And no, did I draft? I think I drafted him, and I decided to keep him in one of our contracts.
Remember you saying while you were getting ready to draft him, it's Josh Jacobs. He's going to play.
I need him to play. But it was probably really stupid. I kept him, but I kept him for 2 years in one of our contract leagues. So even if things get a little wonky this year with him, my hope is that he will get signed somewhere. I don't see him just being done. He is a top running back in the league.
Yeah, I agree.
So.
He will probably play somewhere, whether that he forces a trade or whatever. Before we keep talking about trades, and maybe you want to see him at his new team if he goes to a new team, you know that buying tickets to that is stressful. But Game Time is fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. Maybe you go see CJ Sullivan, the Man in the Box, live at a comedy show. Game Time's fast, easy way to buy tickets with killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee. You can stop stressing over the whole ticket process and get hyped for the fun that you're going to have. So they have flash deals, last-minute tickets. They're easy to find and buy tickets. I'll tell you what I like the most about Game Time. You can go there and you can see exactly what seat you're buying. No more looking at that little diagram and being like, is this close to the seat? You can see exactly what your seat is, what it's going to see. So there's no surprises. Forget planning months in advance, because let's be honest, who can plan months in advance? I know that we cannot. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always have the best price. That's right. You're not going to find a better price. But if you do, they will credit you 110% of the difference. If you buy a ticket on Game Time, then find a better price, they'll credit 110%. That's a lot. Get images of the seats before you buy tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps, boom, you're set, and the tickets are sent directly to your phone. You don't have to keep digging through the email. Did it go to my junk? Is this in my focused inbox, my other inbox, whatever that's about? So snag the tickets without stress of Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code SGPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code SGPN for $20 off, and download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
We are also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, and August is almost over, as crazy as that sounds. And you know what that means. That time is running out for you to draft your fantasy football team over on Underdog Fantasy. You can get championship ready for your home league by trying out Best Ball on Underdog Fantasy. All you do is one live snake draft, no waivers, no trades. You set it, forget it, and Underdog does the rest. Try it out with Underdog's Best Ball Mania tournament, the largest fantasy football contest of all time, with $15 million of total prizes up for grabs, including an absurd $3 million going to the winner. Do you have what it takes to win it all? So you think we both have done. We're both in that Best Ball Mania tournament.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about it.
3 million,
But
here we
the
come.
time is now. The last day to draft your fantasy football team is September 7th. So visit underdogfantasy.com or find them in the App Store and sign up with promo code SGPN to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. So I put in $50. I got $50 back. Total of $100 to do Best Ball drafts with. That got me 4 entries into the Best Ball Mania.
2 free entries.
Yes. So again, that's Underdog Fantasy, promo code SGPN. And
they also have, you can do higher and lower for preseason stuff. And something that I saw in there that I really like, David Montgomery, higher than 750.5 yards. He's never been under that. And I realize he's in a different situation, but this is a better offensive line. I think he crushes it this year. Sorry, I just had to throw that in there.
Yes.
All right, and if you're concerned with your play, like if you're really bad, no, just kidding. If you're concerned with your play, you're gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, Justin.
Let's get back to this news, huh?
Yes. Jonathan Taylor was the next person I had on my list that made headlines. Do you want to cover what's going on there?
I do. So Jonathan Taylor wants money. He wants his guaranteed contract. He wants the money. He wants signed longer. He will not sign his franchise tag. The Colts and he wants an extension. Sorry, not a franchise tag. He wants an extension on his rookie deal, which I get. He's been one of the better running backs in the league. And if he had not done well, it's possible they would have cut him by now. But the Colts and Jim Irsay, which I just realized that a couple episodes ago I said Isray, but it is Irsay. It was just a little dyslexic moment for me. Apologies. But something that he said that he's not going to budge on. He's not, but he also said, I'm not going to trade him. But now they've given him permission to seek a trade. And now they have given him a deadline by Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, which is August 29th. I had to look at the calendar.
Yes, the 29th.
To find a trade partner. So by Tuesday, we should know what's going on with Jonathan Taylor. Allegedly, I never know whether to believe those reports or not, but allegedly 6 teams have inquired and at least 2 have already sent trade offers.
2 trade offers.
Yeah.
Per the rumor.
Yeah.
Yes. Trey Lance is also making headlines because the 49ers named Sam Darnold the backup to Brock Purdy, like the official.
Why does this surprise people? Trey Lance is garbage. Sorry, Lance.
Yeah, anyway, I meant to reach out to Nick, our buddy Nick Fortune, when I saw this to get his take on it.
Or Rod, I mean.
Yes, I guess Rod too. We know too many 49ers fans.
Rod at least has an excuse. He lives in California, so.
But yeah, once that was announced, people are saying Trey Lance didn't show up to practice, and I don't know. I don't know what's going to come of this.
Does that go down as the worst trade in the modern era of the NFL?
Them getting Trey Lance?
Them trading up to draft Trey Lance. They gave the Dolphins so much. I believe it was the Dolphins. If I remember correctly, I read that the Dolphins were able to get defender Bradley Chubb with one of the picks. They were able to get Tyreek Hill, and they drafted Jalen Waddle, if I remember what I read correctly. That is a hell of a haul to give up drafting Trey Lance. Big time.
Yeah.
Sorry, 49ers fans, but I think you got hosed.
Possibly. Another player making headlines, Corey Davis, wide receiver for the Jets.
I have a comment on this, but go ahead.
These aren't huge headlines, but he did announce retirements. So he was pretty far on their depth chart for wide receivers, but
Apparently did not get
What?
along with Rodgers.
Oh,
I'm
really?
No,
Is
I'm
that-
just
oh.
guessing. Like, I mean,
they're
he
not going to
wasn't-
come out and no bad news is going to come out about
he wasn't one of
Rodgers.
Rodgers' guys.
No.
So he's out.
But on the depth charts, I feel like this probably benefits McCole Hardman and
Yeah.
Randall Cobb.
Yeah. Cobb is Rodgers' best buddy.
This is,
I also heard a
yeah.
rumor, which I think is just a rumor, but
Mhm.
that we do know that Davante Adams has been frustrated with the Raiders. He made some
Mhm.
comments at the end of last season about that organization in general. Now, whether he's getting along with Jimmy G, I don't know. But I heard some rumors that he might force the trade and a trade to, obviously, the Jets. So how funny would that be? The super team that they're building there.
That would just be crazy. And then look at what that's doing. The Raiders, if they lose Josh Jacobs and Davante Adams.
Yeah. I mean, they already are in the running for maybe being one of the worst teams this year. But one other thing that has kind of popped up,
Mhm.
there's some news and reports on Zeke out of practices that he could have a considerable amount of red zone carries, and he's working as a pass catching back. Now, this is interesting because I know I said I don't think he's going to have any effect, but knowing that he's going to have a lot of red zone carries, knowing that he is going to be a pass catching back, does this make you more likely to draft Zeke or less likely to draft Ramondre, or both?
Justin, this question aggravates me because it aggravates me with you.
Oh,
Because when this happened, I told you that I felt like this impacts Ramondre Stevenson.
I know you did.
I told you, I feel like this makes him less valuable. I was bummed about it because Ramondre was a running back that I really wanted to target this year because he was a clear, like, only running back who's
Yeah.
he's going to be their workhorse.
Right.
And I said, Zeke going over there changes that and makes him less valuable to me. It's one less running back. Like, they're becoming a 2 running back system.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I do think it makes it like you more probable that you should be drafting Zeke.
Mhm.
And I think that they're going to really share the carries.
It definitely, I'm worried because I do have Ramondre in one of our contract leagues, and I have him contracted, and I am worried about how much that affects him.
Mhm.
Because this isn't an offense. The Patriots offense, I don't think, is going to have a lot of viable fantasy football players anyways. And now you're cutting into the one that I felt safe on. So
Mhm.
that bothers me. But if you think he's going to affect Ramondre a lot, or you just think he's going to get his, go check out some prop bets on DraftKings. You've waited all year and the time has finally arrived. College football is back. That's right. Did you know college football starts this weekend? They call it week 0.
Oh my God.
But
That's
college
just-
football starts this weekend.
That's crazy.
It
I
is-
didn't realize it started this weekend.
Yeah, and I am pumped. There's not a lot of high market games or whatever, marquee games, I mean, but anyways, college football's back, and so are the traditions, the tailgates, and the great offers from DraftKings Sportsbooks. That's right. Right now, new customers can score $200 in bonus bets instantly when they bet just $5 on any college football bet. Now, if it's me, I'm gonna pull this right from Colby because I was talking with him, not talking with him. I was listening to their podcast, so go check that out.
You equated that to talking.
I was
with Colby.
talking with him. He couldn't hear me, but I was talking with him. I was like, "Yep, Colby, good point." But he likes Florida International, the airport school as he calls it, to upset or take the points plus 11. So DraftKings has them at plus 11, and I went down and I got down on those right away. Kick off the season with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code DGEN because we're all DGENs. New customers can score $200 in bonus bets instantly when they bet just $5 on any college football bet. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code DGEN. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY, which is 467-369. In West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net in partnership with Hollywood Casino in Charlestown. Races all games regulated by West Virginia Lottery. Please play responsibly. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbooks for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms.
That was a mouthful, Justin.
A little bit.
Now, SGP has a Patreon now. I know we've been talking about that on previous episodes, but make sure you check out the Patreon. Sign up for the Patreon to get access to exclusive contests, including the NFL win totals contest.
Yeah.
With a $1,000 first place prize. The guys just recorded their first sports gambling podcast, Stories podcast, just for patrons, chronicling the birth of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. So you don't want to miss that. Go on over, check out the Patreon. There's even a Discord channel just for patrons. The Sports Gambling Podcast has and always will give out all their picks for free. The Patreon is just a great way to support the network and to fight back against corporate gambling. So that is sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon.
And that first episode has a tale about a bearded dragon that you don't want to miss. All right, Miranda, should we get to our guest? I think we get to our guest now.
Yes.
We're going to talk some auction strategies with Kyle Senra. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Senra. I got stuck there, obviously. And we're excited to talk with him. So let's bring him on in.
Let's bring him in.
All right. Like we said, we have a special guest today here to talk auction strategies. He's the managing editor at Full Press Coverage, as well as podcast host of the Full Press Fantasy Pod, the Full Press Packers Pod. And you can also find him on Going for Two live. Sorry. Kyle, how you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Great time. Specifically, I love talking auctions. I love doing auctions or fantasy football. Seems like both of you are really into that as well. So I think we'll have a great conversation here for the listeners.
Absolutely. It's been, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, but it's been my favorite since I started fantasy football pretty much.
Yeah, me too. It's so much more fun than your normal snake drafts.
I agree wholeheartedly. My favorite way to draft as well.
Absolutely. Well, welcome to Old Fashioned Football. We appreciate you sitting down and chatting with us. One of the things in fantasy football content world, which not everybody agrees with, but I'm pretty passionate about, and that's getting like multiple opinions, right? Because there's so many creators out there, content creators, so many opinions. I actually like absorbing all the opinions and then kind of using all of that to kind of go with what I feel, I guess, based off of what people say. So I'm sure you, me, Miranda, we won't all have the same opinions. I know we often don't.
No.
So it's going to be fun to kind of talk about auction strategies, and I'm glad that you're coming on the show here.
For sure. And to your credit, Justin, the point of absorbing as much information as possible, I think, is super important. There's all this great information out there, and yeah, you might not agree with some of it, but that could also help inform your own takes as well. So yeah, take in as much as you can, I think.
Absolutely.
And before we start talking auctions and fantasy football, can you give us a little bit of background on when you got into content writing and podcasting?
Yeah, so I remember it was 2018. I wanted to start writing articles. I liked fantasy football a lot. And so there was a site called Dynasty Dads. Sorry. They did a podcast and they had a website at one point. And Matt Renshaw was one of the founding co-hosts of that. And he and I are still a close relationship now. He's come on my podcast recently as a guest. And so, they on their Twitter account, they put out a post that they were looking for writers. I applied. I got back to them. I think I'd heard the podcast before, or at least saw some of the stuff on Twitter, was really interested in them. So I thought I'd jump at the chance. I wrote a few articles for them. Ultimately, they moved away from the website almost immediately after I got there. I think I joined them in February, and I think by like June, July, they kind of realized the bandwidth to run the website and it was going to be too expensive. So they eventually the podcast moved on to the Dynasty Trade Calculator feed. So they didn't have a website, so they didn't have writers anymore. But that allowed me to springboard, and I used some of those articles I wrote for them to apply for going for 2 and full press coverage. Got in with both of them. And so like Dynasty Dad early 2018 was that springboard to get me to want to do it and got me in the door. So super appreciative of the Dynasty Dads for that.
For sure. Very cool. And before we, I guess, jump into auction strategies, you are a Packers fan, and I wish I could give you crap for that as a Bears fan, but obviously you guys have beat us over and over and over again.
Maybe not this year.
Maybe not this year.
Maybe not.
Hey, we're only 2-3 weeks away from the first Packers Bears game. So
I know. I actually talked about that on a gambling pod. That, do you know how heartbreaking it is going to be to Bears fans that Rodgers is finally gone, and if we lose that NFL opener to them, I mean, it's going to be heartbreaking. But anyways, what are your expectations for the Packers this year?
So on top of all the auction stuff I do, I also, for full press coverage, write a series of articles and do podcasts specifically about touchdowns. And in season, I write a series called the Goal Line Guide, where I'm trying to predict touchdowns, whether it's passing, rushing for each team on a week-to-week basis based on their opponents and tendencies. But I also project preseason and like before the season, like over the course of the year, who do I think will score the most touchdowns on offense? And honestly, I've got the Packers as like the 6th lowest in the entire league. And not to say that offensive touchdowns are the only thing that are going to lead to wins. Field goals and defensive scoring and just defensive efficiency will help in that. But all to say, the Packers are the lowest team in the NFC North for me in my touchdown projection. So it would not surprise me at all if the Bears do have more wins than the Packers this year and finish higher. And if I had to pick who I think would make the playoffs between the two, I almost think the DJ Moore help, because I wanted him on the Packers. So I was super upset to see that trade go through. Now I have a bunch of Justin Fields shares in Dynasty. So that rejoice came over me quickly. Yes. Finally, give him a receiver. Finally, they got him somebody.
For sure.
So, yeah, I don't have the most faith in Jordan Love. Now, they may not finish bottom 6. Like I've joked with some people, like they're probably closer to Caleb Williams with Jordan Love than they are to the Lombardi Trophy. But I also think he's not awful as a quarterback in that he won't completely fall apart. He understands how to run NFL offenses. Just in the little time he's played, the one start he had, he did things like actually really good against the blitz. Anytime any team blitzed him, especially the Chiefs in that one game in his one start, he seemed to be really decisive, finding his hot reads. Just the moment of operating offense doesn't seem too big for him. Everything with Jordan Love, question mark, is just his accuracy. Yeah, I've yet to see him really complete balls down the field at any point, other than we talk about season openers. I'm sure that you probably had fun watching this. The Packers season opener, I think it was 2021. So coming off of Rodgers' MVP season, they had just lost the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. And so high hopes. And they go to, I think it wasn't even in New Orleans because I think there was a hurricane happening. So in a neutral site, the Saints just smoked them beat them by like 40 points or something, like 45-3, whatever it was. In that game, when they brought in Jordan Love pretty early in the second half, he was completing balls downfield, like intermediate throws, and it seemed good, but it was also the Saints playing like 3 high safety shell prevent defense. So outside of that one game, when it's competitive, close scoring, tight man coverage, I haven't seen Jordan Love yet really complete any passes downfield. Everything's always short, that seems to be a strength. Just get the ball out quickly, hit receivers in stride, but the downfield accuracy, I think there's massive questions there. And so the ultimate upside, I don't see him leading the Packers to the playoffs. I think that's ultimately the goal. So I'm expecting to be disappointed, which I suppose if I'm expecting that, I can't be disappointed, right? I will inevitably still be though.
Yeah. Yes. Well, it's refreshing because I hear a lot of people that are Packers fans saying Jordan Love is the next Aaron Rodgers, the next Brett Favre.
And I just don't see that at all.
Yeah, those guys I think were even early on showed in like their college career showed good downfield accuracy. And I think Jordan Love's arm strength is fine, but again, it's just that it's inconsistent accuracy, and you're either an accurate quarterback, you're inconsistent at it. It seems like he's more to the inconsistent. Maybe a year full of starts finally gets him to because that's the one thing. Like, I don't think accuracy, and I've never played football in my life, like organized football certainly, but I'd imagine accuracy isn't something that's just you're born with. Like, these quarterbacks work at it. They work at it, and just all the reps and all the passing reps, you can get better at it. So is that all Jordan Love needs is the reps, and he can be that franchise quarterback? He just needs the time under his belt, maybe. But I also think if he's so bad that they can just draft another franchise quarterback, his window is very short in that. Now, I don't see him getting benched though. Like I don't really see them trying out Sean Clifford at any point, unless they're really serious about the tank and they think that's the better way to do it. But I'd imagine Jordan Love probably gets all 17 games this season as long as he's healthy. And if he sinks, then so be it. They can. I mean, even next year's contract, they can get out of it, or if they, it's not too big of a contract that if they have to go get another quarterback, they can't have him on the roster. So we'll see. I would much rather have Justin Fields on the Packers than which my Packers co-host on the Full Press Packers pod, Jeff C. We disagree about that. We've butt heads about. I talked about why didn't they draft Jalen Hurts instead of Jordan Love that year, and he gave me a lot of pushback on that. So far right now, I think he'd much rather have Jalen Hurts. I get the same vibes from Justin Fields, so it's one of those where, we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how I feel like we are as Bears fans every year. There's the hope, and it's like, but we'll see.
So it's crushing disappointment.
Alrighty. Well, let's talk some auction strategies. Kind of get your opinion on how you approach things and whatnot.
Yeah. So what are some? Oh, go ahead. I was just going to ask you
a question. Yeah.
What are some top strategies that you use when doing your auction drafts?
So I do a lot of preps, for auctions pre-auction. I think I find it's the format where I feel like I have to have the most preparation. But in another sense, I also feel like it's the format where even if you have all that prep, you have to also be the most flexible, reading the board and seeing what the prices are. So I do have some strategies for in auction management, but a lot of what I do for auction strategy is the pre-auction stuff. I create my own cheat sheets, and I kind of want to go in with values that I think players should go at. And not that I will, again, back to the flexibility, I won't necessarily always match them, but I want that framework, that guide to kind of guide me, especially early in the auction when those first few players come up and you don't, like later in the auction, you've seen enough players, you kind of get a good idea of what they should go for. But certainly early on when those prices are being established, I find it's a really helpful guide that I can use. And the one beauty of it is I do auctions in redrafts at times, but mostly in dynasty and contract salary league formats. But regardless of the format, the way this auction process starts for me is always the same. So and I think, I guess, I don't know how much you listen to a lot of podcasts, you said, Justin. You probably hear this a lot on podcasts, but it's the truth. The first thing with fantasy football is understand your league, your scoring settings, all the parameters. And for an auction, there's so much more to know. Like, what is the total budget? Do you have to fill your entire roster? Can you win less than the maximum roster size? Is there a minimum you have to go with? And all that factors into certain decisions. But ultimately, the first things I look for are two: the total number of roster spots, and then the total salary for all teams across the board. So how many players will be won in this auction, and what's the total amount of money we'll spend to try and just get averages for all that.
Yeah.
And do you kind of go in with like a budget per, like, you'll spend this much on wide receivers, this much on running backs, like to start with? Or
no, I usually I in the past I did, but I found a much more success budgeting for individual players. And there might be certain instances, okay, it's not a tight end premium league, and like it's something where I feel like I can punt that position. I might budget a very small amount for tight end, like almost the minimum. Okay, I'll go 2 tight ends and I'll bid the minimum on each. So I'll budget $2 for tight end. Like if it's something as small as that, I might do. But for the most part, I like to just have those dollar amounts for every single individual player.
Yeah. I like, you said some of your auction leagues are the contract or dynasty type. I like those because you can really get to know your league mates, because obviously everybody drafts differently. And so for me, part of the prep in those is like, all right, I know, this person is going to draft 3 quarterbacks no matter what. This person's going to do like we're from Iowa. So this person's going to like the Iowa Hawkeyes players and overspend on those. And it's fun.
So they will roster 6 tight ends.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's fun to get to know. We had one guy draft CJ Beathard last year because he's like, he's going to win the starting job over Trevor Lawrence. And it's like, well, you can believe that. That's fine. But it is fun to kind of learn those things that everybody does, I guess.
Which is funny because I have so much Nathan Rourke thinking he'd win the number 2 job over CJ Beathard. But yeah, so far that doesn't seem to be happening. But yeah, I guess the next step for me is in that first decision. Once you figure out those, again, that baseline averages across the board, what's the total money being spent, what's the total number of players, is making that decision on the number of like the minimum players. I kind of was referenced that with the tight ends. I
Mhm.
have a list of players that I think are worth the minimum amount, but I'm not going to put in my cheat sheet under this. I call it auction pyramid because essentially it functions almost like steps. Like
Yeah.
regardless of how you organize your players, the first player on the spreadsheet should go for this amount, and then the second player slightly less, and third less, and then eventually you'll decide what that player order is. But I think so much of my process goes into those numbers first and giving myself a baseline across what the most expensive player should be, second most, and working down stepwise all the way to the minimum. But then I also have another list of minimum players below that. These are players that during the auction I will be willing to nominate but never bid up on. These are the players where if I nominate and no one else bids them up, fine. I'm willing to roster this player for free or for the minimum.
Yeah.
But as the second someone spends even just an extra dollar on them, that's a win for me because that's more money being taken out of the pool than I think is worthy of these players. And to me, the next step in my process is figuring what's that number going to be? What's the percentage of minimum to non-minimum contracts? And I actually go
Mhm.
pretty high with the minimum contracts. To me, I find anywhere between 33% and 67%. Nice, either 1/3 or 2/3. And that to me the scale of where that'll be will depend a lot of times on the depth of the starters. If it's
Mhm.
something like a start 8, I'm sure you've both heard enough auction strategies that talk about studs and scrubs, right? You fill out all 8 of your starters. You want to spend all your or almost entirely all your budget on those 8 starters, and every bench player is for minimum. I
Mhm.
think that works well when the starting lineup is smaller. But once you get to a starting lineup of like 13, I find that you stretch yourself too thin, and that depth really does become important. So in a start 8 league, I might go more towards the 67% minimum because it almost works counterintuitively. The more you want to
Yeah.
go to that studs and scrubs style, the more you want minimum players because for you want to push all that money towards the top end players. And you're willing to roster almost entirely, like more than half your lineup of minimum players. But in a start 13 league, that's when you want okay, only 33% of the players should be minimum, which means everyone you'll have a lot more players you're willing to bid on. And again,
Yeah.
those players where you're nominated and willing to go over the minimum for. So that's really like the first decision when it comes to this auction process for me is what's that minimum percent number? And then again, once
Mhm.
you get through the whole thing, you'll have a list of who those players are specifically. But for now, it's just those numbers of players that are important.
Yeah. It's interesting because if you think about it, I mean, probably at least 3, 4 players on your bench, you're going to drop for a waiver wire pickup anyways, right? So,
Mhm.
spending a lot on them doesn't always make sense. So I agree with that. I got to ask because it's something we talk about as far as strategies goes. In fact, we made it part of like our commandments, our auction draft commandments. Do you tend to nominate players you want, or do you tend to nominate players you don't want that you think will drain budgets?
Yeah. So again, talking that minimum list, there are times where you'll want to nominate from that list, hoping other people, like you said, drain their budgets. But I
Mhm.
find my mentality on that will shift depending where I am in the auction and where I am
Okay.
with my money relative to others. If I find
Sure.
I'm one of the teams with the most money, that I think is the key time to nominate the players you want because you're in a better position to get them relative to the rest
Mhm.
of the league. But early on, when everyone has all the amount of money, you maybe have a lesser chance to do it. So that's when I'll let the other people nominate the players I want. But if it gets to a point where those players haven't come up yet and I've got the money to spend on it, then I will nominate them myself. And I don't care if I'm telegraphing it because I've got the most money or the second most money. I can
Mhm.
sort of push that further. So I think it
Sure.
all depends for me is how much money I have relative to the rest of my league.
Yeah, makes sense. I think at least the first round or two, I always try to. It's like, who are these kind of top rated guys that I'm not sold on that I know are going to
Mhm.
drain a budget? Last year, I think both of us were out on Christian McCaffrey because we just didn't trust his health.
We were
Obviously,
wrong.
yeah, obviously we were wrong there, but that was a guy. It's like as soon as it comes to me, if he's there, I'm nominating him because I know people are going to spend a boatload of
Mhm.
cash on him.
Yeah, I like to get those top dollar players that like you said, that I don't want nominated, get them out there, get people's budgets draining. I like once you're that person who has like the most of your salary left, it's like a powerful feeling. Like you can get the person you want then.
I'm notorious in my leagues for I'm going to nominate tight ends for the first 7 or 8 nominations till I get one for free. Until I get one where no one bids on it, and I just get them for the minimum. So like you said, like you're both saying, go with that big player everyone wants. So Travis Kelce right off the bat, that gets a lot of people money, especially in leagues where there's no tight end premium. I'm more inclined to just give me the minimum for them, and I'll spend all the rest of my money on the other 3 positions, get a strength at those, not just in high end, but also in depth. And I'll play the waiver wire at tight ends, and that's the perfect position to do it. I always look week 1. Did the tight end I have on my team get more targets than everyone on the waiver wire? If so, I'll keep him. But if not, I'll just go for that player that got more targets week 1. And sometimes, like, you run into one or 2 cases. Like last year, Kylan Granson had like 7 or 8 targets week 1. That didn't sustain. But for the most part, I think almost everyone else in like the top 10 or 15 of the tight ends that got targets week 1, almost all of them finished there at the end of the year. So those tight ends that emerge as kind of getting targets out of nowhere, usually it happens early on in the season. So I'm quick to react to tight ends. I'll chase the targets. Like I said, there's exceptions like a Kylan Granson. I think James O'Shaughnessy 2 years ago for Jacksonville. He had his first game like 6 or 7 targets. He was up there, and then he got hurt, and then it was it for the year. But it's certainly there's what you guys were saying definitely makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. In auction leagues, do you find yourself going after kind of the same players as you do in redraft, or do you go for different ones, or does it just depend like kind of how they're going value wise?
Well, and I think once the auction pyramid is done with the values and you know what all those slots should be, that's when I add my player tiers in. So to me, if it was just a redraft and the auction was a redraft league, it'd probably stick to close the same. Push up running backs to wide receivers, depending on if it's full PPR to half PPR. Tight end premium, you might push up those early tight ends, especially, but essentially just getting those tiers in place. Actually, I've rambled so much. What was the question again?
Just if you kind of target the same, you're good. Like players in redraft.
But I think the beauty of the auction process is, again, so much of it is player agnostic that when it comes time to putting players in, you're just following whatever your tiers or rankings are for whatever the format is. So the first part of the process is the same for every format, but then once you start adding players, and that's where it will deviate based on whatever the settings are, the format is.
Yeah, for sure. How long have you been doing auction drafts? Just curious.
So I joined a salary cap contract league and that league is still running. It's been going since 2015. So we're almost at a full decade now for that league. And that was for a few years, that was the only auction I would do every year was that league. The one appeal of a salary cap contract league, because I've also joined just a straight up dynasty auction. You do a startup for the auction, but then that's it. There's a rookie draft every year, but that's linear. So there's no other auction through that. So it's a dynasty auction startup, but it's not really a dynasty auction league because you don't auction every year. I mean, some dynasty formats will have a rookie auction instead of the linear one, but I just love the salary cap contract format because every year you're going to do an auction for all the free agents that aren't under contract. And that's when it's not just rookies. You get sometimes some really good players available, and it makes the bidding really interesting. Other years the pool is really dry. So there's a couple guys that might get boosted up more than they should be because they're the best available, even if it's not a strong class. So just love being able to do an auction every year. And so that's more auction drafting, right? It's so fun. Let's do it every year.
Right. Yeah. We actually met a guy at the expo who's an auctioneer, and he goes to live drafts and does live auctioneering for auction drafts. And I thought that was really cool.
That's super sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't done an in-person live draft. I've done like live timers where it's like 10 seconds for the timer, but over the internet.
Yep. Same. Most of, I think all the leagues we're in, they're contract leagues.
They're contracts.
Yeah. And so you have your budget, and then based on how many years you contract, their cost goes up. I guess it's $5 in most of them. And then, but they all have some different rules of like, you can only contract this many new people each year or for this many years and kind of like that.
I've often seen like limits, like, okay, within an auction, you only have like 1 4-year contract available, 2 3-year contract, or something like that, where I've also been in other auctions. There's no limit. You want to put every player on a 5-year contract that you win, go right ahead. But you also have those cap hits for 5 years. So there's pros and cons.
Yes. And we have one league that has no limits, and it's like exciting. Like, oh, I could keep all these really good players, but then you really have to think about like how long you're going to contract them for, and you don't want to
Yeah.
end up with somebody who's
We've all been there.
not going to be playing for very long, and then you're stuck with these big contracts.
And sometimes I take those risks too. Like I've had some players where, okay, to get like, because I play like on Reality Sports Online, and they've got this like integrated system where you know, you can bid whatever your amount, but it'll the system will choose still like the most guaranteeds over a certain amount of time. So the 1 year amount will be different than a 3 year amount to bid over that. But so sometimes what I'll do is, okay, I don't want this player on a long-term contract, but I also don't want, like, they've gone past the point where I'm comfortable paying. So instead of paying them at that as a 1 year, I'll put it over 3. It'll lessen that cap hit, but it also the drawback if you have that third year on the contract. So sometimes I do stuff like that, and honestly, almost every time I regret it. It's like, oh, I should just paid more those first 2 years. But I think a great tool for that, though, is the websites that track contract information. I think Over the Cap and SpoTrack have both become really popular over the years. And whatever resource you use, both are great for that. If just before an auction, I go, okay, what players are available, and I have the, again, with my spreadsheet that I do, I've got the dollar amounts all set, but then I'll also put year amounts as well for the contract leagues. Just knowing, okay, this is the ideal number of years I want for this player. Sometimes it's 4. A lot of times it'll only be 2 or 3, and I kind of do base it off of what do the real life contracts look like. I know they'll be in this situation for how many years. So
yeah, for sure, that's a good idea. Before I move on to a kind of a different subject here, did you have any other strategies that you wanted to highlight?
Well, I guess the last part of the auction sheet creating process that I always find the funnest, and maybe it's because it's the last step, but it's once you get all those players in, and again, this pyramid of stepwise motion of the most expensive players, slightly more than the second most, slightly more than the third, I like to flatten off the areas where it is a big wide tier. And that's why usually when I input the players, it's not just straight rankings. I input them as tiers. So what I can do is I can visibly see where those tiers are and easily adjust them and easily figure out where I want to adjust. And what I'm trying to do is within a tier, let's say there's 10 wide receivers all in the same tier. I'm dropping all of them to the lowest price, and I'm tracking how much money I'm saving out of that. And usually what I want to do with that is throw it back up to the top. The elite players that I can make the pyramid even more unequal and push those guys further forward. And that's, you know, I'm willing to overspend on the elite assets. If it's a super flex league, I'll overspend to get my QB1. In one QB leagues, if it's half PPR, I'll overspend to get a Christian McCaffrey or an Austin Eckler, or whoever the RB1 is. If it's full PPR, I'll go for those elite receivers. And I find the best way to do that is saving so much money everywhere else, tearing down at so many other positions, to then just throw all that money at the top tier, however many players that is possible.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so Miranda will tell you that I am a cheap ass, and I love to get a player on a really good deal or really cheap. So I'm curious, who are some kind of budget players that you're looking at this year that you're like, you know what, their AAV, their average auction value, it's not that much, but I think they're going to be, kind of have a really good year and be worth taking a flyer for that $1 or $2 or whatever it is, based on how your league works.
A lot of times those really cheap players are coming from ambiguous situations. If it's super obvious, everyone's going to want to bid up for them. So looking at like a team without a clear wide receiver 1 or a team that it's valued as a clear wide receiver 1, but I might think the opposite player might be the wide receiver 1. So one situation that really comes to mind is the Baltimore Ravens. I would imagine Mark Andrews is going to lead the team in targets, but they also have like 5 first round wide receivers on that team. And while I don't think Jalen Reagor is one of those, I don't think he's going to do that well. But like the other 3 or 4, I guess Laquan Treadwell is one too. So, they're first round in name value only, but certainly wouldn't expect much. But for the 3 other guys, Beckham, Flowers, and Bateman, pick your lane. And maybe sometimes it's just picking whoever's the cheapest in the auction. I tend to stay away from Bateman right now. I've actually traded away all my dynasty shares of him. I don't love the news of them deciding, just a couple years after spending a first round pick on you, we're going to go spend a first round pick on Zay Flowers, a receiver that like a lot of people pre-draft weren't necessarily expecting to be a first rounder. So that clearly means the Ravens must be really high on him. So Bateman I know he's been injured a lot, but he hasn't really done much. When he's out there, he's not drawing a great target share. I would imagine, I think it's pretty reasonable to expect Zay Flowers, even as a rookie, should do better than Bateman. So he's a guy I'd like to push up. But if Beckham is healthy, he's probably the wide receiver 1 on that team. So he'd be because of the injuries, I think super reduced in price. So he might be someone I'd
Mhm.
like to go on and take a shot on. But again, that could be one if you're in an auction and someone believes that Beckham's really that guy, maybe Zay Flowers ends up being a lot cheaper too. So
Yeah,
again, back to the flexibility of just reading the board, right? Sometimes you might, okay,
sure.
I'll take the cheapest receiver from this team, whatever it ends up being price wise.
yeah, for sure. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say people are talking Odell Beckham up so much. Like I feel like that even from being at the expo, everybody is just saying,
They're-
"Oh, he's gonna be the guy," even though I feel he's past his prime. But in that instance, you probably could get Zay Flowers for a really good deal,
Yeah.
especially if you're in a league where people are really high on Beckham.
Yeah. Yep. Another team, and not that I don't have a lot of faith in their offense doing well necessarily this year, but the Panthers, DJ Chark just got hurt. So you're looking at Adam Thielen, Jonathan Mingo. Those are guys that they're not going for a lot, but they're going to get targets. So they might be worth just stashing and seeing how they do. And then I kind of think the Broncos are going to bounce back a little bit this year. I don't think they're going to be great, but they're so devalued because of last year that you could get Judy or Cortland Sutton for a really good price right now.
Yeah, certainly. I think Sutton's especially cheap.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of redraft ADP where Judy's going up there, but when it comes to an auction, that may not always follow.
Yep.
People are
for
forced
sure.
to pick at a certain slot; they'll just default on players. But when it's their money they're spending, they don't believe in the player they won't. So yeah, they might end up being again ambiguous situations. Who is the wide receiver one? Might see some
Yeah.
drafts where Sutton goes higher than Judy, although I think for the most part Judy's probably the more expensive one, which again
Yep.
would make me want to go for Sutton. And to your
Yeah.
credit with the Panthers, like I'll take Miranda's quote on Beckham. I wonder how many people think Thielen is over the like past his prime and over the edge, and that
Yep.
could also make him reduced in cost for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Because when he's healthy, now I know different offense than the Vikings, but it seems like he's almost been guaranteed 8 to 10 touchdowns. So, but it's the
Other than
health
that one
with
year
the-
where he was like catching everything, but he finished the year with only like 6 or 7, but he career
Yeah.
high in receiving yards. That was a strange season where he was I think he had like consecutive 100-yard games the first 8 weeks of the year, but in that stretch had maybe like 3 touchdowns.
Mhm.
But yes, it's funny since Jefferson's been in and he doesn't get the volume. It's just end zone, red zone targets. He's a strange case, that guy.
Yeah, for sure. Did you have any other questions you wanted to throw out right now?
Well, I had another thing I was thinking about with
Yeah.
this too, like the Chiefs wide receivers come to mind
yeah.
because
Yeah.
even last year, with Mahomes being top quarterback in the league, there was not a single Chiefs wide receiver in the top 20 for wide receivers. But it's hard to know who's going to be in my opinion, who's going to be a clear wide receiver one because they have Kelsey and he is basically their wide receiver one.
Oh, for sure.
But I think that, I was going to say, I think like even like Rashee Rice or something like that being worth like a flyer to see
Mhm.
if maybe a wide receiver stands out on that team.
those would be those players in that minimum list, right? Like if you can
Mhm.
throw them out and no one bids them up, I think Marquez Valdez-Scantling is perfect for that because
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think he's the old guy there he's not the shiny toy. I think he could, down the stretch in the playoffs, especially. Well, him, it's always the championship game. He did so well for the Packers a couple times in the NFC championship game, but not really any other games. I think that was the case for the Chiefs, right? He was kind of invisible in the Super Bowl, but went off in the or the AFC championship.
Yep.
But just to say, it looked like he was getting more targets as the year went on. So I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up being the best wide receiver on that team. As like we're saying, Miranda, Kelsey's the alpha there. He's going to draw the most targets.
Yes.
But he's also still probably only going to catch about a quarter of Mahomes' touchdowns. So where do the other 75% of his touchdowns go?
Mhm.
I don't think it's all going to go to Jerick McKinnon this year like last year.
Right.
But who knows? Maybe it does.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I really want to believe in Sky Moore, but I was high on him last year and then nothing. So, sometimes, especially in auction leagues, it's like you take a chance on those guys and then it's hard to do it the next year.
For sure. But then you also wonder, is that sour the price where you could get him so cheap? If he had smashed last year, he'd be so expensive where you might not be able to attain him. So again, buy into the ambiguity. You look at those like the Chicago and the Dolphins backfields. Are they three-way committees or is there someone that's going to emerge? Like whoever you want to pick, you could probably get any of them for fairly cheap. So that's another kind of write your own story narrative that you can. If you go just a few of these ambiguous pieces, you've got kind of the solid back end starters, depth for your bench, and then you can spend extra money on the elite assets.
Yeah, the Bears backfield is interesting because I know everybody loves Roshan Johnson. They think he's going to do great, and it's driving Khalil Herbert's ADP and his AAV down so much that it's like, why not take a shot on him? Because they were such an efficient rushing team last year. Now, a lot of that was Justin Fields, but still, they're going to run the heck out of the ball. So, I mean, why not?
Yeah, for sure. Personally, I believe Roshan is more talented than Khalil Herbert. But I also know how NFL offenses work. He's going to have to prove that to the coaching staff and not just through training camp. So I would imagine Khalil Herbert gets the most carries this year. We'll find out next year. I think next year is way too far away to even know.
Sure.
Is there a chance that Roshan gets the most targets out of the running back backfield? I think that's certainly a possibility. I might even say that's likely. I also think that might not be a lot of targets anyway, because like right now I've got the Bears, I think, projected for the second fewest pass attempts in the NFL. Even, I think I've got Fields at 434 pass attempts, which would still be a career high for him. I think he'll get over the 3,000 yard plateau, but it's still one of the lower volume passing offenses. So if Roshan is the third down back, he's probably the third down back on the worst possible team to be a third down.
It's true. Yeah, for sure. No, I know they're excited about, Fields can open it up and all this stuff, but I know our record wasn't great, but rushing the ball, we did so well. And so why not stick to it? I mean, they kind of built the offensive line with more of those run blockers. So I think they stick to that as much as I want to see him throwing 50-yard bombs or whatever, but just run the ball, win the games. And that's what they need to do.
Well, I think it's funny because people complained last week because the big thing was holding the ball too long. No one getting open, and he's just either having to scramble or just he's trying to force things in. He throws this like screen pass to DJ Moore, goes for 60 yards and touchdown in the preseason. Everyone complains, he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. But it's like, but this is what we want to see. Quick, decisive Fields. Like, this is exactly what we want. This should be a positive for everyone.
We didn't get to see that game, but when we were seeing those stats come in and we're like, oh my gosh, like he must have really thrown the ball. And then we were like looking and it's like, he didn't. It's but still, it was successful.
Yeah, we were actually... Oh, go ahead.
Like that would just seem like again, that one area was a huge deficiency for him. And frankly, maybe that was the receivers, right? No one's getting open. That's why he's having to hold the ball so long. So having a DJ Moore, I think, will help him in that regard. It may not mean they throw more because, like you said, they're so efficient at running that why wouldn't they continue to do so?
Right. Yeah. All right. Anything you'd like to add before we close out here? I'd love you to tell everybody where they can find you, maybe some upcoming content to go check out.
Sure. So, two sources for me, Full Press Coverage and Going for Two. Specifically with Going for Two, I do live streaming there. Haven't actually written any articles for them this year. There's a lot of people on staff, and so I kind of do all my writing at Full Press Coverage. But for Going for Two Live, I actually have a live show tomorrow night. Wednesday, right? Yes, tomorrow night. Yep. So August 24th, it'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern on the Going for Two Live network. Find on YouTube, just search up Going for Two Live. It's called the Dynasty Gambit, and it's actually going to be our off-season finale. We're going to bring on Eric Romoff, who is responsible for the Pros with Joe's charity. For those looking on Twitter, there's been a ton of activity about that. We'll have Eric on to help preview that, and we'll talk about some stash and trash players. I know a couple Dynasty leagues, there's like cut downs. Off-season rosters are a certain size, and then in-season rosters are a different size. So that time of year is coming now to those back-end roster cut-down decisions. So we're going to talk a lot about that at the back end of our off-season of Dynasty Gambit. And then in-season, I moved to Monday nights. Every Monday, we'll do a pregame show at 7. I guess weeks 2 and 3, they start at 7. So we'll have to figure out our schedule those weeks with the 2 doubleheader weeks in a row there. But
sure.
Myself, Dan, the B League Says, and Gladys, we just the 3 of us, and sometimes Dr. James Freddy, who's a radiologist by trade, the doc as we call him. He'll come in and do injury analysis on the weeks where he's available. But for those seeing on the screen, my Twitter account is @SenraSaid, so I'll usually be tweeting out a lot of that information. When it comes to Full Press Coverage, you already previewed it in the intro. I've got 2 podcasts: Full Press Fantasy and then Full Press Packers podcast. Packers podcast, we just talk a lot about Packers in season, especially. It's game previews, game recaps, essentially.
Sure.
Off season, we'll near the draft, we'll talk draft stuff and free agency when those times become appropriate. But a lot of what we do is in season. Full Press Fantasy Pod, that goes year round, though. Me and my co-host, we talk a ton of Dynasty. This time of year, geared towards redraft. We just finished our 5-part tier series. We did 2 episodes on wide receiver, going through all 4 positions, viewing how we view each of our tiers collectively, and how my 2 co-hosts, where we differ, where things compare between those tiers, with players to target as a result, who might be cheaper because, hey, the other 2 co-hosts are sleeping on them. We'll get them cheap.
Sure.
For articles, a lot of my full press coverage articles will be my ranking articles that will be published every week that show the weekly rankings, but I also do something called the goal line guide. I touched on it earlier. It's my way of trying to predict touchdowns in season. And what I do is I track, usually ESPN is great for this. I'll shout out ESPN because they're on their game recaps for every game of the week. They also have a play-by-play section. They'll tell you literally each single play in the game. And I go through that and I look for any play inside the 5, hence the goal line term. And I'm looking for both offensive efficiency, but also defensive efficiency. I want to see how many attempts teams take, both running and passing the ball, how often they're scoring touchdowns, and then conversely on defense, how often they're allowing touchdowns, both running and passing. And that lets me cross-reference those stats on a week-to-week basis. Okay, I'll take a matchup. I'll take this offense versus this defensive stats in the near the goal line and see who's got a good matchup based on their own skill, but also their opponents. The biggest lines also help in terms of the over-under. I also incorporate that in the team totals, just because there might be a team that's really efficient in the red zone because they run so few plays that they've happened to score a couple times, but they're projected to score 16 points a week. That probably means they're not going to get those opportunities. So I also think that's important to use the odds makers total to guide which teams will score the most points. But then I, again, use all this goal line guide information. I'll pat myself on the back because the reason I track it myself is because I can't find this stuff anywhere. And I'm very much, when it comes to fantasy football, I've got my own spreadsheet to track all my rostership and dynasty because I haven't come across a site that will cover every site I play on, like Reality Sports Online with the contract league. So I'm very much, if it doesn't exist, I'll just do it myself. I'll find a way to just track it all manually. So this was one where this goal line guide information, especially the defensive stuff, I don't know that it might exist somewhere that's behind a paywall, but this at least gives people the free access to the content. And I'll usually what I share is my goal line grades, which I do for each team. I do it running and passing. Again, it's based on their offense, the defense they're playing, and the applied total for that week. That comes out as the goal line guide. I usually start after week 5. Week 5 will be the first week I publish it to give myself 4 weeks of data to base it off of. And I find as the season goes on and there's more data, I find it becomes more accurate. So fantasy playoffs, I find it especially helpful. Certainly throughout the year, I think it's a good guide to help with the goal line stuff. So for sure. Coverage.com, and you'll see that appear weekly in season.
Awesome. Sounds awesome. Yeah. Well, make sure you follow Kyle on Twitter. I noticed I put Twitter on here, even though it's the X. I'm still living in the past and calling it Twitter. At Senra says. Yeah, there you go. Check out everything he's got going on at Full Press Coverage and at Going for 2 Live. Kyle, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate your time and talking some auction strategies with us.
Yeah, Justin Miranda, thank you so much for the invite. I guess Dave Hellman also, who connected us. So shout out to Dave, because he's the one who told me about this, and I think he reached out to you. And yeah, it was super fun. So glad it could all come together, and I had a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be sure to have you back if you're interested.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thanks again to Kyle for joining us. There was a lot of great information about auction strategies and some things that, that we haven't thrown out. So it's always good to get that different perspective because everybody's got their different experiences.
Everybody does. And you don't have to agree with everything. I love getting.
You tell me I got to agree with you all the time. What are you talking about?
I shouldn't say we never, but we don't agree on fantasy football.
I know we don't.
But no, I love talking to people, hearing their strategies. It makes you think about some of your own strategies differently. But Kyle had a lot of great information, and I'm definitely going to go check out all of his stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Especially, check it all out. But I'm especially excited to see the touchdown projections that he was talking about.
Yes.
So sorry, I'm moving around a lot here. I'm grabbing our whiskey, because this is the first episode. You guys are going to get us to see that we're actually drinking. We're not just making this up. And I have a flavor.
I need to smell it. You opened it.
I
popped this. Sorry, I'm interrupting you again. I opened this earlier.
Yeah.
The first sound when you open the bottle is like.
It was glorious.
It was.
This one was very good. Really good. Didn't sound like that. It was deeper. Calm down over there. So my flavor wheel is, I don't have it right by me. So I apologize. I'm going to have to wing it. But Miranda
It's a big
did.
sample.
Oh, sorry. Do you want this one? And I'll give you a smaller.
We're good.
Miranda did get me for our anniversary a flavor wheel so that we can really actually look at things if I'm stuck on them, or you too, I suppose. But for sure, when I'm stuck on them, because that happens a lot, when I'm stuck on it, that I can kind of look like, oh yeah, there it is. In fact, I think the first person that told us we should get one of those was that Kate.
Yes.
Kate Douglas out of Keeper's Heart. Just a reminder that Keeper's Heart is sponsoring our live listener draft. And we are going to have that on Friday. So make sure you join us on the YouTube around 6:40. Jump in the comments. And it should be a really good time. One other thing I want to point out before I forget, and we'll remind you at the end of the show, but if you're listening on a podcast streaming platform and you're subscribed to the SGPN Fantasy Football feed, stay subscribed to them. They got a lot of great content coming out, but we are just going to be on the Old Fashioned Football feed. We're spreading our wings and flying. Thanks to a lot of the support we're getting from you guys. So make sure you subscribe to the Old Fashioned Football podcast feed so you can continue to get our episodes as they come out.
Yeah, we've been on the Old Fashioned Football feed since
March.
Last day of March, basically.
Yeah.
Basically since April. This spring, previously we were only under the SGPN Fantasy Football podcast. So if you are listening to us under that podcast, please go subscribe to Old Fashioned Football and continue to listen to us on that feed only.
Yeah.
As soon as the season starts.
As soon as in season starts. Yeah. You'll still find us right up to the season, but changing up a little bit. And we appreciate all your support, of course.
Of course.
And like I said, don't unsubscribe from them. They're still going to have a lot of great content coming out of there, and it's still going to be fun stuff. But we just don't want you to think that we went away just because we're not on that feed anymore. And we want you to know where you can find us.
Yes.
All right. You want to talk while I taste?
Yeah.
My favorite
part. I'm
part.
gonna have one more drink in my old fashioned.
Okay. Did I do all right? I made the old fashions tonight.
You did?
Oh, there was that was definitely set up for a butt. You did? But what was wrong with it?
This is better than the old fashioned we got at the bar in Canton at the hotel bar.
That was terrible.
And it was made with Woodford double oaked.
Yeah. Allegedly.
I don't think it was.
I requested that, and that was in front of me, and they went around to make it a different place. Maybe they had another bottle over there.
Maybe, but I don't think I've had multiple old fashions with Woodford. We're getting way off topic here, but I've had multiple old fashions with Woodford, especially that double oaked. And I've never not liked an old fashioned with it.
Yeah.
This old fashioned was hard to drink.
Mm-hmm.
It was not. It was
bad.
No.
Just say it. It was bad.
It was bad. It was bad.
Well, I'm glad I'm at least getting above that very low bar.
We have an orange. We had an orange today. I put an orange on the grocery list. You went and got us groceries earlier this week.
We do have an orange.
Mm-hmm. And there was an orange on the list so that we could have a fresh orange peel, a little bit of slice of orange with it.
Yeah, I didn't want to overdo it.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, okay.
It's very good. And you did put
First I did, but now it's very good. I'm working my way up. The more she takes a drink,
I'm giving
the better
too many
it is.
compliments. No, it's good. I have gotten away from just a plain sugar cube in my old fashions, and that is what you used. But I didn't want to tell you how to make it. No, it's not all we have.
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
We had that or the bourbon cube, and I asked which you wanted. Nope. We have another.
I haven't been making our old fashions with that. We have raw organic sugar.
Oh, you've just been scooping it?
Like organic brown sugar cubes.
Mm-hmm.
We have honey, and we have all kinds of different maples.
Oh boy, guys.
I know. So we also have the herbal simple syrups that we got in Colorado.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about those.
Those are really good. One of them is like a salted honey, like caramel simple syrup. That would be good to try in old fashioned.
I didn't think about those.
We have all kinds of them. We also. Do you want me to keep going?
Let's talk about old Potrero.
Okay. Yes, let's talk about old Potrero. which is what we're drinking, and it is a single barrel reserve straight rye. Say that without
Straight rye, straight rye, straight rye.
Okay, fine. Straight rye whiskey. This is a barrel select from Ace Spirits that we bought when we were up there. It is aged 7 years and 9 months. This is bottle number 99. And as we said earlier, it's 131.3 proof, which is the highest proof whiskey we've tried on the show. But let's just get into some of the background information, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do
This
it.
this smells delicious, by the way.
I know. Hang on.
It'll for me,
It
when I
does.
kept my mouth closed, it tingled my nose hairs a little bit.
Mhm.
You probably don't have that issue, but I definitely had to open the mouth
Mhm.
a little bit, like we'd learned. Anyways, go in the
Yes.
background.
Okay. The Old Potrero is out of San Francisco, California. And this is twice distilled in small copper pot stills. The mash bill is 100% rye, like 100% malted rye.
Which
Let's
is
get that right.
interesting. I don't think we've tried anything that's 100% rye
I don't
before.
know if we have. And then for the barrel, on this particular one, it's dried 24 months and it's a fine grain New American oak barrel. And let's see. I already said it's aged 7 years and 9 months. So to get into some background information on Old Potrero, which you can find all kinds of information on their website. They make this one and they also have a 6-year rye. But you can go to oldpotrero.com. And it's currently being distilled at the I'm gonna butcher this. Hoteling and Co. distillery.
It's much better. I was gonna say the hot tailing, but it's not hot tailing.
No.
It's hoteling.
Hoteling, I don't know. In San Francisco,
Old Potrero,
California.
reach out and correct us.
They also make Hirsch selected whiskeys, and I've seen them. It's like that teal label.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
We saw it at Wall to Wall.
Okay. Yeah.
We
Who
have
should
not
be
tried
sponsoring us, but anyways.
that. Wall to Wall.
Yeah.
Yes. But anyway, Old Potrero, I think back in 1993, Fritz Maytag, who established the original. Fritz Maytag established the original Anchor Distilling Company before it was Hoteling and Co. Distillery.
Mhm.
And some may know Fritz Maytag from his purchase of Anchor Brewing in the 60s, 1965.
Wow.
He sparked the craft beer movement with that purchase.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Yes. And then after many decades of brewing beer, he had an opportunity to expand and start distilling spirits.
Mhm.
So at that time, there weren't any pot distilled whiskeys being made in the US. And so he was inspired by the rye whiskeys of America's past and single malt scotches.
I was gonna say pot still is usually a Scotch or Irish whiskey thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, back in the day, for American whiskey, I think it
What
was
is
pot
back
still.
in the day? Back in the
I don't know,
day.
1800s.
Okay. Back in the 1800s when they were making the moonshine.
But anyway, so he put together a team in 1993 to research and experiment in his distillery. And then the first barrels were put down in 1994. And they started producing a rye whiskey from a 100% mash bill of malted rye.
Mhm.
And I guess it marks the return of pot stilled whiskey in the US.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mhm. So, Justin,
Yeah,
did you taste it while I was talking?
I did and
Okay.
smelled it.
I need to catch up now. And I need to
Sure.
smell.
I'm going to talk about this a little bit while you're doing that. I get like, if you think of a barrel aged stout beer, that's kind of what I get for a smell, which makes sense because of the barley or the malted. I mean, the malted.
There's
the
no barley in
Actually-
this 100% rye mash bill. There is no barley, honey.
My bad. The malt, I was thinking the malted, but I get like a barrel aged stout smell to it. What do you get?
I don't get any beer.
What do you get? Yeah, she doesn't know. Can't tell me I'm
It's
wrong.
really
This is-
good.
No,
I-
it smells delicious.
Phenomenal.
a whiskey chocolate, maybe.
Maybe a little chocolate. I don't know how we get that out of 100% rye. Well, there's spice.
I don't know how.
It-
Yeah, I don't know how aesthetically pleasing it is for y'all to just watch us.
Sniff our whiskey.
Little ASMR.
All right, I'm going to try this.
Now you do get some heat, but not the heat you would think for a
Mm.
131 proof.
No, but it's very. My whole
It's so
mouth
good.
just got. Even the roof of my mouth got warm.
Yeah, it's so good. What do you taste? I
know, I
I
have that
still
in my
get like a
mouth. Hold on.
chocolatey goodness.
No, I do like a dark chocolate bar.
Yes, yeah, like a aged dark chocolate with a little
Aged-
bit of whiskey flavor.
Aged dark chocolate.
Is that a thing? It sounds like it should be a thing.
Aged
Yeah.
chocolate.
She's gonna Google it while we're
I just
on the
wanna see what
tube.
you're pulling out of your ass over here.
I'm pulling aged dark chocolate out.
Oh my god. Disgusting.
No, this is really good. It is. It's chocolatey. Now, if you listen to the episode we did with Luke Castle from Ace Spirits, the owner, there's no aged chocolate.
Well, I
You're
mean, you
shaking
can
your-
if I look up aged chocolate, that's all I put in the Google.
Yeah,
And it brings up how to make chocolate better, barrel age it. Like
that's what
barrel-
it tastes like.
No.
Barrel aged chocolate. I've never had that, but that's exactly what it tastes like. Luke Castle from Ace Spirits, the owner of Ace Spirits. If you listen to that episode that we had him on, and if you haven't, I highly recommend going back and listening to it. But it's also on the YouTube or on your podcast streaming platform. But this was the one thing that I said, if you could tell somebody to order one thing from your store right now, like they have to get it,
Mhm.
this was what he recommended. And so that's why I had to try it when we were up there. And I agree. Like, this is really, really good. It's very unique. It's very different than anything you taste. I feel like. Have you
Mhm.
tasted anything like this before?
No.
Yeah.
I think I just like my last sip went down a little wrong. Because the back of my throat's all
Where-
scratchy.
Are you gonna throw back to when we had Nathan Kaiser from Two Bar
No.
on? Or are you gonna turn into the 80-year-old smoking grandma? If you
No.
haven't watched that one, highly recommend to go back and watch that because it was hilarious.
He was a hoot.
Oh my gosh, he was awesome.
We had a lot of fun with him.
Yes, but anyway, sorry, not to derail us from Old Potrero. This is really good. I'd be interested to try one of their like just regular because I assume they
one
have
of their regular. It's this. Did you listen to me?
it's this in the 6-year
Yes.
right? Yeah, just like the regular 6-year, not the barrel strength. I'm sure.
This
I'm
doesn't say barrel strength. It's
One-
single barrel.
yeah, a 131 proof has got to be barrel
I
strength.
guess it's got to be.
Yeah. So I'm curious, do you know off the top of your head what the 6-year rye is proof wise?
No, but I can tell you. I think I still have it on my phone.
Tell
there.
me. If you're a rye fan or just a whiskey enthusiast,
97.
97, okay. If you're a rye fan or just a whiskey enthusiast, I think you should try this because it's just very different.
I still have my
She's
throat's
still the
hurting.
80-year-old smoking grandma. What did he say? You want any potatoes? Something like that. It's just really different. Not a bad different, a good different. I like it. I really liked it in the old fashioned. I think it stood out and it changed the flavor of the old fashioned in a good way. But yeah, I recommend this. I know our buddy Zach Cavello, I know you're a big rye fan. It doesn't taste like a rye necessarily.
It packs
it has,
heat.
yeah, it packs
There's some
heat and it's got
It
some
warms you
of
all the way down to your intestines. Past your stomach.
intestines, right down to the colon. No, this just, I think you should try this basically.
It's very good. There's a lot of rye and spice. There's so much flavor. One of the reasons I really like rye whiskey is because of how much flavor and spice you can get out of it.
Mhm.
And I think the warmth from this kind of, in a way, can mask some of the spice. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But it's there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that grain.
Yeah. It would be interesting to add like a couple drops of water to see if you could pick out some other flavors from it. There you go. You got that. Because yeah, I just held it on my tongue and your tongue just tingles. Not in like a oh my god, that burns type of way, but it's nice and tingly. I thought it was kind of cool.
That was probably really loud in my
Yeah, I
microphone. Sorry,
know.
everybody.
We're hitting the ASMR crowd right now with all the noises, and the sniffing and everything.
I liked it better without I put 3 drops of water in it.
Oh, it changed it that much, huh?
I don't know. I like it better without adding water.
I do
You get
too,
a lot
but I
more
feel
grain.
like yeah, you do. I was gonna say, but you can taste some different flavors. Yeah,
So let's
very
see.
a lot of grain there. It took away some of the chocolatey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you add ice, you're gonna lose some of that chocolate compared to if you try it straight.
Very grainy. And
Mhm.
oak. I get a lot of oak now. It was masking that oak. Like roll it towards the front of your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Oaky.
Interesting. It's very, yeah. Maybe you're leading the witness here, but yeah. No, I really like this.
Personally, I don't recommend adding 3 drops of water. If you really
Yeah.
want to get the flavors,
Sorry, it was a
that
bad
are in
idea.
there, no, it's okay. But for this one, I liked it before. I liked less oaky.
Yeah. This is
And
the best way I can describe this. I mean, it is good. We say a lot of them are good. I understand that. So you want more to go off of than that before you order it.
yes.
The what I can say about it, excuse me, is that it's very different. This
Mhm.
is a very different tasting whiskey. We have a lot of different bourbons that they're very comparable, especially when you get into the big name guys. There's a lot of comparable bourbons that like this tastes very similar to that because so many of them are using the similar recipe. This is very different.
I think that's kind of why, not only because ryes are so complex, but
Mhm.
that's kind of why I think it was easier for me to start liking the ryes, because we, especially earlier on,
Yeah.
we were trying a lot of just bourbons
Right.
and those big name bourbons.
The big name ones. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's not a lot of difference in them. And
Yeah.
we even found, I don't remember which one we were reviewing, but we found that they got their whiskey from another like big name, or that all of these big names are distilled at the same distillery.
Right. There's a ton that get, everybody wants their Blantons or whatever, but there's a ton that is distilled there and you can get a much cheaper version that's pretty much the same thing.
Mhm.
Which I did want to clarify. I'm talking about big names.
The
big names. That's one of the things I love about the craft distillery movement.
Mm-hmm.
Is you're getting much different flavor profiles than you would in all those big names.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's one of the things I can really say about the Old Potrero is that just it's very different than anything I think I've had. I can't think of anything that I've tried that of ryes that is like this. Can you?
Of ryes,
Yeah.
I don't think so. And I don't know if part
I
of
know
that
it's
is because
backwards
of the
there, but-
proof too. So it's such a high proof rye.
Yeah, definitely could be.
We've tried a lot of high proof bourbons,
Yeah.
but I don't know what our next highest proof rye is that we've tried.
Maybe just 100 proof, a bottled and bond rye. It is also, I don't think we've had a lot of ryes that are aged 8 years.
Mm-mm.
This is 7 years, 9 months, basically 8 years. So that obviously is going to affect that flavor as
Yeah.
well.
With this proof, I will say, like, it is good in your simple old fashioned.
My old fashioned went from did it taste good? It did, but to it's really good to your simple old fashioned.
Well, it is. This is pretty basic. Orange bitters.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And
You use more than one.
uh-huh.
Angostura.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
And a partial orange slice and a Luxardo. No, Bordeaux. Not Luxardo. Bordeaux cherry. And a white sugar cube with a little bit of water.
My old plain ass old
That
fashioned.
is pretty simple.
Didn't use simple syrup. That would have been simpler.
No, I don't like syrupy old fashioned.
I know. No, this is very good.
Mhm.
I really do like this one. This is one that I do recommend trying. I understand ordering a bottle is tough. If you don't know if you're going to like it, I get that. 100% get that.
Mhm.
So, So yeah, stay tuned for our big NFL season start, because I am now saying I will send a handshake of Old Potrero so that you can try it as one of the prizes. How that's going to work on our kickoff show for the NFL kickoff season. Basically, you come on into the chat, comment something, ask a question, whatever you want to do. But as long as you get your name on there in the comments, then we're adding you to the prize wheel that we will spin at the end of the stream. So and we'll spin it live. So adding that as one of the prizes, because we want to make it fun. I know we're new to this being on YouTube, and we're going to be live streaming. That's going to be pretty new for us, and we just want to have a fun time, and we want you guys to have a fun time.
Giveaways. What's more fun than giving away free stuff?
Right, especially free whiskey. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that tune in for the fantasy football advice, but I feel like there's just as many that love to hear about all the different whiskeys. So yeah. So make sure you tune in. We'll give the full details on that coming out, but there will be a handshake of Old Potrero. Otherwise, if you find yourself up in Minneapolis or Minnesota in general, go to Ace Spirits and try this. He'll let you try it for free. You don't have to pay. And yeah, get a sample of it, because I have a feeling if you're a whiskey enthusiast, you're going to want to walk out the door with it just because it is so different.
Yes. And if you know me, I
do know
critique
you.
bottles and labels and stoppers, and this wood stopper is, I like it. If Haley was watching me right now.
Right.
Okay. Anyway,
this weekend, the reason Miranda says that this weekend, Miranda was very adamant about telling how much she liked the wood on the Willet
stopper.
and
It was
to the
like
point that she was like
rounded.
stroking it.
It was
and
round because
got
it was
awkward.
rounded. I know.
Josh and I
I
are
make
like,
things awkward.
she's like, Haley, you got to feel this. And they're both like feeling this bottle, which is in different shape anyways with its long stem. And they're feeling the top. And Josh and I are trying whiskey, and we're just like, what is happening?
We were all trying whiskey.
Yeah,
you
that's
and
true.
Josh.
That's true.
We make things fun.
Yeah.
You just sit back and you're just drinking it. What would you do without our entertainment?
Fair enough.
Okay. But I was gonna say, I'm trying to put this up here. I really like the label
The bridge is cool. The everything.
with the pot still in the middle of the bridge.
Yeah. Very
And,
cool.
Yeah. So anyway, even the bottle, like it's a normal, not a unique shape for a bottle, but the bottom of
It's
the
a
bottle,
little different.
The
but
bottle
yeah.
is different in its own way.
That is yeah. That is a little different. One thing that I did not realize, this is a 700 milliliter. So I want to tell you that so that you don't feel hosed out of your 50 milliliters.
I know. When we
'Cause that did
didn't notice
surprise
that
me.
till we were home.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, this isn't even a full 750.
Now, worth it? Yes.
Yes.
But it did surprise me. I don't know if you can see look at the this probably looks weird if you can see it on there. You can see that like there's a nice indent in the bottom there. There's your 50 milliliters right there. Anyways, join us on the YouTube live Friday night. If you go to Old Fashioned Football right now where you're watching this, you'll see it queued. Go ahead and hit the notify me so that you know when we go live. Come on in and comment. Tell us our picks are terrible if you want. That's okay.
I'd like to get a lot of people commenting.
Come and hang out with us on Friday night.
Making it more entertaining. I apologize in advance for anything I say, how angry I might get.
Don't apologize for that. That's what they're tuning in for. People want to see you angry. They love the drama.
I get so angry at you during drafts when we're not even drafting together. So
again, that's sponsored by Keeper's Heart. They're going to be providing the winner of our draft with a bottle of Keeper's Heart whiskey. Exciting for them. They just got named the official whiskey of the Dan Patrick Show. So that's a huge deal for them. Congratulations, Keeper's Heart. But grab yourself some Keeper's Heart and drink with us, because I know I'm going to be drinking, because I'm going to have to be getting yelled at and put up with that. Uh-oh.
I'm going to be sipping the Keeper's Heart finish in Madeira.
There you go. There you go. I'm going to have both the Irish bourbon and the Irish rye, and it might get crazy. We will see. So join us, because it's going to be fun. That's Friday night. Again, subscribe on your listening platform to the Old Fashioned Football Podcast. Just type in Old Fashioned Football. You will find us. You will recognize our logo. It's in the top corner right there. You'll recognize it. And subscribe to the YouTube so you can catch us live. We're going to do a kickoff for the NFL, and we're going to have prizes to give away. More than just a handshake of this, there's going to be other prizes. So yeah, check that out. Miranda, do you have anything else to add?
I don't, and my old fashioned is gone.
Going once, going twice.
Sold.
Old-fashioned football.